Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us here at Empowerment Liberation Cathedral. We are so excited to bring you this Word Wednesday on tonight. As you know, February is Black History Month. We have had a great time presenting to you some new people, some people that you are familiar with, just giving you people from everywhere. And so we are so excited tonight to be able to bring to you once again um, some great African Americans. I want to call them great because they've all done some great things. They've helped us to be able to change the world, change America. So we ask that you would hit like, we ask that you would hit share, and we ask that you would create a watch party so that you won't miss this great information that we're giving out on tonight. Once again, please make sure that you hit share, hit like, and create a watch party so that you can allow others who are connected to you to get the same information that you're receiving on tonight. All right. Well, at this time, we want to get started. Um, if somebody can let me know we're still live on Facebook. Okay. So we want to get started. So tonight we have with us who are going to talk about all of these great African Americans. We have Deacon Kim Hall. We have Deacon Ronnie Bullock. We have Minister Eliana Bullock, and we have Minister Catherine McKay and Page. So we have some great people for you tonight. Um, we are going to start. Let's see. We want to start with a particular area. So here we have some sculptures by Augusta Savage. So I want to share some information with you about Augusta Savage. She was one of the leading artists of the Harlem Renaissance, as well as an influential activist and artist educator. Born in Florida in 1892, Augusta Savage began creating art as a child by using the natural clay found in her hometown. After attending Cooper Union in New York City, she made a name for herself as a sculptor during the Harlem Renaissance, was awarded fellowships to study abroad. Savage later served as a director for the Harlem Community Center, created the monumental work, The Harp, for the 1939 New York World's Fair. She spent most of her later years in New York before her death from cancer in 1962. So there we have Augusta Savage. And I believe that's her picture with one of her sculptures there. All right. So, what do you all think about those pictures that we just showed, the sculptures? See, I put this up because a lot of times we talk about the people who are doing music, we talk about the people who are on television, but we don't talk about those painters, those artists, those sculptors. So that's why we want to look at them on tonight. Anybody?
I think they're beautiful. If it wasn't for black sculptors and artists, there would be no black art. Really, to be honest, not any quality art. And I've never heard of her. I probably have seen some of her statues, and but I've never heard of her. So this has been a good Black History Month where we going into uh, different artists that we've never been exposed to.
Right. I think it's important for us to know that African Americans also do some of those sculptures that we see, because a lot of times we walk by these nice monuments and walk by these nice busts and all those types of things that we don't think about an African American could have done that. So I think it's important to realize that we too are in those areas of creation, like creativity. Anybody else?
I think they're beautiful, especially the two, I think it was two women, I couldn't see the left side, but the two women that created the heart, and within the heart
Hmm.
was the face. Like, that's phenomenal. That is phenomenal.
Let me see if I can bring that back to the screen here.
Yeah, that one on the left-hand side.
Hmm.
And then you see the face, and the face's
Yes.
features are still the full nose. The
Yes.
Cupid's bow is really pronounced in the mouth, so you still know it's us. It's just
Hmm.
beautiful. That's beautiful. And then on the bottom, the tears in the eyes, that is
Hmm.
incredible. That's incredible.
Hmm. And that picture was so lifelike. I mean, it's amazing how she was able to capture detail. So we're going to move on to our next one. Anybody else? Deacon Ronnie?
No, I was just ready to say I agree. I think they're very beautiful how an African American can only capture African Americans, so it is beautiful how she was able to capture that. And it's amazing how way back then that she was noticed for her artistry, because that's a hard platform for us to get into. I think they only
I
think
think
Edgar
so.
Allan Poe or all those other people can only produce art, but we also have that ability and talent in us as well.
I think so. I think so. All right. So we're going to move to our next person, which is Edmonia. I can't see the last name here, Lewis. And so hopefully um, someone has possibly heard of Edmonia Lewis. Let me read for us her information. So she was the first professional African American and Native American sculptor. She earned critical praise for work that explored religious and classical themes. She was the first notable commercial success, or her first notable commercial success was a bust, I just said that, of Colonel Robert Shaw. The money she earned selling copies of the bust allowed her to sail to Rome, Italy, where she mastered working in marble. I tell you, this is phenomenal. She quickly achieved success as a sculptor. The circumstances of her death in 1907 are unclear, but she hailed as the first professional African American and Native American sculptor. Lewis had little training, but overcame numerous obstacles to become a respected artist, and that is important. Elusive when it came to personal details, Lewis claimed different years of birth throughout her life, but research seemed to indicate she was born around 1844 in upstate New York. She was the daughter of a Black father and part Ojibwa mother. She was orphaned at an early age, and she later claimed was raised by some of her mother's relatives. With the support and encouragement of a successful older brother, Lewis attended Oberlin College in Ohio, where she emerged as a talented artist. The abolitionist movement was active on the Oberlin campus, which greatly influenced her later work. In Boston, Lewis befriended abolitionist William Lord Garrison and sculptor Edward A. Brackett. It was Brackett who taught Lewis sculpture and helped propel her to set up her own studio. By the early 1860s, her clay and plaster medallions of Garrison, John Brown, and other abolitionist leaders gave her a small measure of commercial success. So there we have um, Edmonia. I hope I'm saying her name correctly, Lewis. So anybody on Edmonia Lewis?
Well, I'll tell you, you are saying the name right. I'd never seen that. My grandmother's name was Edmonia, And
Okay.
so that's an old school name.
Yes.
Right. But I think it's interesting. I'll say that how um, even back in the days right after slavery, they would choose black artists to immortalize white Americans, but then
Yes.
but
Yes.
then later on, we weren't good enough to do anything. So it's interesting how things change. So, but
Yes.
yeah, here's another person that I had never heard of either. So
Right. Right. Anybody else? Well, that's why we're bringing these people to the forefront because, see, when we walk, especially in museums and in places where they have these in the front, we don't assume that a Black person might have done that work. And so now when we walk by these, we might question or might, research to see who the sculptor actually is. And so that's why we want to raise people's consciousness about, Black folks are great. We're in every area. That's all I can tell y'all. We're doing everything. We have done everything and still doing everything. Okay. People of color. I love it, love it, love it. All right. So we're going to move to our next person. So the next person, I love this because these are quilts, and this particular artist painted her stories on quilts. Faith Ringo, she did her stories on quilts, which I thought was very unique. I mean, it's just amazing. She's an artist, but she also does quilts. Faith Ringo is an American artist and author who became famous for creating innovative quilted narrations that communicate her political beliefs. While working as an art teacher in public schools, Faith Ringo began a series of paintings called American People, which portrayed the civil rights movement from a female perspective. I tell you, we got some awesome, awesome sisters. In the 1970s, she created African style masks, painted political posters, and actively sought the racial integration of the New York art world. During the 1980s, she began a series of quilts that are among her best known works. She later embarked on a successful career as a children's book author and illustrator. So she was born Faith Will Jones on October 8th, 1930, in the Harlem neighborhood. All these folks come from New York, neighborhood of New York City. She was the youngest of three children born to Andrew and Willie Jones, who raised their children during the Harlem Renaissance and exposed them to all of its cultural offerings. As she suffered from asthma as a young girl, Ringo spent a great deal of time at home with her mother, a fashion designer. Look, a fashion designer in the Harlem Renaissance, who taught her to sew and work creatively with fabrics. Through her grammar and high school years, Ringo also developed an interest in art. By the time she graduated, became intent on turning her interest into a career. She enrolled at City College of New York in 1950, wound up studying art education when the liberal arts department denied her application. And so after receiving her BS in Fine Arts and Education in 1955, Ringo spent the latter half of the decade juggling several different roles. Ringo began developing her own art, which at this time was fairly conventional. She received her MA in art in 1959, later toured Europe, visiting many of its finest museums. And so she would prove to be a pivotal period. 1960s would prove to be a pivotal period for Ringo. Um, she married Burdette Ringo, also embarked on creating a series of paintings, American People. Today, that ranks amongst her most important work. And so, centered around the themes of civil rights, she painted Neighbors, she painted Die, and she painted The Flag is Bleeding, which all capture the racial tensions of the era. So, what do we have to say about Faith Ringo?
She also put art in Rikers Island for the women so that they can see images that were not
Yeah.
incarcerated after her interviews. That was amazing.
Wow.
It's
Nice.
it's amazing to me that she was before her time, because when I look closely at her pictures, you know, especially like the flag, it resonates today, you know. So she definitely was before her time with the art that she was able to produce. So it's at that flag over in the left-hand corner where the kids are holding on and it's bleeding. And, you know, I think about current day. I think about the kids down in Texas that don't have their mom and dad. I think about the riots the rioters that has surrected, you know, so she definitely was before her time. And then in the picture, Bishop, where she had all the people standing around in the back, right? It looks like it's, I just had his name. He's a white artist. To the right with the hat on, looks like a white guy. In the far right, it's a white artist, and I can't think of his name. It just slipped me. But somehow she incorporated him in there, which is fabulous. But he's in the background. He is not in the forefront. Beautiful.
Yes, 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 yes. Anybody else on that one? Okay, so we're going to move on to our next person. Here we have Gordon Parks. And I thought it was important because often we don't talk about photographers. Gordon Parks was a prolific, world-renowned photographer, writer, composer, and filmmaker, known for his work on projects like Shaft and The Learning Tree. Gordon Parks was a self-taught artist. We got some self-taught artists, don't we? Who became the first African-American photographer for Life and Vogue magazines. And so I thought that was awesome because I'm sure that was very hard to enter into that space. He also pursued movie directing and screenwriting, working at the helm of the films The Learning and retrospectives as well, including A Choice of Weapons. So Gordon, Lord, he has a long name, Gordon Alexander Buchanan Parks, was born on November 30th, 1912 in Fort Scott, Kansas. His father, Jackson Parks, was a vegetable farmer. The family lived modestly. Parks faced aggressive discrimination as a child. He attended a segregated elementary school, was not allowed to participate in activities at his high school because of his race. The teachers actively discouraged African-American students from seeking higher education. Anybody familiar with that? After the death of his mother, Sarah, when he was 14, he left home. He lived with relatives for a short time before setting off on his own, taking whatever odd jobs he could. He purchased his first camera at the age of 25 after viewing photographs of migrant workers in a magazine. His early fashion photographs caught the attention of Marva Lewis, wife of boxing champion, somebody knows whose wife that is, Joe Louis, who encouraged Parks to move to a larger city. Parks and his wife, Sally, relocated to Chicago. Parks began to explore subjects beyond portraits in fashion photographs in Chicago. He became interested in the low-income Black neighborhoods of Chicago's South Side. 1941, Parks won a photography fellowship with the Farm Security Administration for his images of the inner city. He created some of his most enduring photographs during this fellowship, including the American Gothic, Washington, D.C., picturing a member of the FSA cleaning crew in front of an American flag. So he relocated to Harlem. It seems like everybody did that. Parks continued to document city images and characters while working in the fashion industry. 1948, his essay on the Harlem gang leader won Parks a position as a staff photographer for Life magazine, the nation's highest circulation photographic publication. Parks held this position for 20 years, producing photographs on subjects including fashion, sports, and entertainment, as well as poverty and racial segregation. He also took portraits of African-American leaders, including Malcolm X, Stokely Carmichael, and Muhammad Ali. So there you have Gordon Parks. What do we think about Gordon and his photography and his capturing the inner city? Anybody?
Well, I know he's one of the most world-renowned Black photographers that there were. And honestly, back in those days, if it wasn't for people like Gordon Parks, we wouldn't have any images or positive ones either, of the Black community, because if you left it to other people, all you would see was just all of the poverty. Yeah, I've seen some of his work before, and it's excellent work. And and for a photographer back in those days to be able to do some of the things, for me, it's about like looking at the picture um, with the photographer's eye, and it wasn't just point and shoot. He actually took the time to get some dimension, some depth, and capture a story in there. So yeah, I'm familiar with that, with his work.
His pictures tell a story, or they give us a glimpse of what was going on in history. And so when you look at the whites only, that takes you back to that time and lets you know this is what people had to live through. And it just, to me, some photographers are able to capture the moment very well. And he appeared to be one who could do that.
Captured it with pride, though. That family, although they're only drinking out of that one, the kids are clothed well. He didn't take pictures of us in our worst in the environment. It's almost like he showed us rising above what was going on. It's beautiful.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, anybody else on that one? It's amazing. Sometimes when I looked at these, I said, I would never go into a museum and say this is an African American who has done this work. Okay, so here we have Henry, I suppose that's Osawa Tanner, Henry Tanner. So as we look at these, Henry Tanner was an African American painter who frequently depicted biblical scenes, best known for his painting Nicodemus visiting Jesus, the banjo lesson, and the thankful poor. Okay, so he studied at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts. 1891, Tanner moved to Paris, and after several exhibits, gained international acclaim. And he was somebody, international acclaim, becoming the first African American painter to receive such attention. Nicodemus visiting Jesus is one of his most famous works. He's also known for the painting The Banjo Lesson and The Thankful Poor. He was born in 1859 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, oldest of 9 children. Tanner was the son of an Episcopal minister and school teacher. So now you see why he often painted religious pictures. When he was just a few years old, Tanner moved with his family to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where he would spend most of his childhood. Tanner was the beneficiary of 2 education-minded parents. His father, Benjamin Tanner, had earned a college degree and became a bishop in the AME, or African Methodist Episcopalian Church, I should say. In Philadelphia, Tanner attended the Robert Vaux School, an all-Black institution, and of only a few African American schools to offer liberal arts curriculum. Despite his father's initial objections, Tanner fell in love with the arts. He was 13 when he decided he was going to become a painter. So y'all know how parents felt about that. He painted and drew as much as he could. His attention to the creative side was furthered by his poor health. After falling significantly ill as a result of a taxing apprenticeship at a flour mill, the weak Tanner recuperated by staying home and painting. So finally, in 1880, a healthy Tanner resumed a regular life and enrolled at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts. He studied under Thomas Eakins, an influential teacher who had a profound impact on Tanner's life and work. So there we have Tanner. So what do we think about his paintings?
I mean,
pictures that he captured.
the more you show of these African American painters and artists, Bishop, the more I am just wowed. Because just like you said, when you go into, like if you go down to the Smithsonian museums or wherever we go to museums and look at art, we really have no clue
You don't.
who they are. You know, like their names are not the basic African American names, you know, so you automatically think that they are of a different race or culture or whatever the case may be.
Yes.
But every time you put a picture up of their paintings, it's just phenomenal. And
The one here in the middle, let me just say this. The one here in the middle, as you're talking, I'm thinking, when I saw that, this was supposed to be Jesus when he gets out the boat to walk on water. And so that's what that one is depicting. Here is a gathering, a religious gathering down by this tree here. And so I'm like, you know, it's just amazing when you think about the mind of these artists and what story they're trying to give you or what message they're trying to give you. But you're right. I mean, I would not have said if I walked into a gallery today, this is a Black painter. And so we are very well qualified to do these and very gifted and talented. And it's just amazing the work that we have already done and the work that we're still doing. Minister Eliana?
I think it says a lot that probably all of us on here, some paintings we wouldn't attribute to someone of, African American descent or African or brown from any other country. It says a lot. It means that we weren't exposed. And I think it's amazing that right now we're exposing people, including ourselves, to the art that is in us, so that we won't have our children questioning if that was a Black person, rather than saying, well, who was it? It must have been a Black person. So I think that's beautiful.
I think the last 3 weeks, and I'm going to talk about that. The last 3 weeks has been very enlightening for me because, I've never thought how many Black-owned businesses or how many Black and African-American people had accomplished or overcame so many obstacles or barriers that was put before us. And, when you talk about even the young Black, Princeton young man that we talked about, and, so many people, Starbucks, I went to Starbucks today to brag because I know that there's some Black females behind that, and I went in and I was talking to some of the employees that work there. And I said, listen, I'm going to get some shares up in here, because I come here all the time. So, it makes you proud to know that, you walk in these establishments that doesn't even have up these type of pictures or speaking of these individuals, and to know that, there's somebody of color that's behind, a lot of this work that has been done over the years, years and years of work. So, I'm proud to be sitting here. And the reason why I wasn't talking about the other pictures because my house is a little loud and I don't want to, be on video like that. So everybody quiet down a little bit now. So I'm blown, Bishop, by this, history experience that I'm getting, this new history experience. And they always say you're never too old to learn. You can always teach, someone who in the older bracket or the mature bracket, some new things, so I appreciate this. I really, really do. And just like, you were just speaking of, and everybody on the panel, Minister Eliana and Deacon Ronnie said that people are painting pictures of what it was to them or what they seen through their eyes back then, and that was their reality or that was their vision. It was picturing and with all the art and stuff that they have done, and is much well to be respected. So I do appreciate that tonight and you sharing that knowledge with me.
Amen. Amen. So the next person, now James Van Der Zee. All right, so here we have another photographer. So James Van Der Zee was a renowned Harlem-based photographer known for his pose historic pictures capturing African American citizenry, and celebrities. So he developed a passion for photography as a youth and opened up his own Harlem studio in 1916. Van der Zee became known for his detailed imagery of African American life and for capturing celebrities such as Florence Mills, Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Following hard financial times, Van der Zee enjoyed a resurge in his career during his later years. So he was born in Lenox, Massachusetts in 1886, the second of six siblings born to Elizabeth and John Van der Zee. They were great students in general, and James learned how to play the piano, violin as a youth. He later developed a passion for photography and took pictures for his high school. With his brother, Walter, he departed for Harlem, New York. I tell you, I told y'all everybody to go to Harlem. In 1906, once there, he held jobs as a waiter and elevator operator. Um, and then he did photography work for the Hampton Institute later on. For several years, he put his musicianship to use, playing with Fletcher Henderson's band and the John Wanamaker Orchestra, while also working as a piano and violin teacher. The Harlem Renaissance was in full swing during the 1920s and 30s. Van der Zee would photograph Harlemites of all backgrounds and occupations, though his work is particularly noted for his pioneering depiction of middle class African American life. He took thousands of pictures, mostly indoor portraits, and labeled each of his photos with a signature and date, which would prove to be important for future documentation. Um, Van der Zee's photos sometimes contain special effects from the result of darkroom manipulation. In one image, a 1920 photograph titled Future Expectations Wedding Day, a young couple is presented in bride and groom finery with a ghostly, transparent image of a child at their feet. So now I believe, no, we don't have that picture up here. Okay. Um, so that I think was the wedding day picture, but that one does not capture the feet that they're talking about there. So anybody on James Van der Zee?
Bishop, I wonder what was the purpose of him capturing the child at the ghostly child at his feet? Like, was he depicting like this what happens when you get married and you have a little bad little Chucky, a little seed, or like?
I think you know how artists kind of play around and try to see how they can manipulate things. I think he probably was just trying to see what he can come up with. And more than likely, that is a procedure that people use today. You know how Spike Lee would do certain things with the camera lens and all these different shots, and now that's a part of what they do with shooting film today. And so, you know, I think those people who just kind of played around and manipulated things contributed to a new way of doing things in the industry. So that would be what I would assume would come forth from that.
Yeah, makes sense.
Sometimes when you look at pictures like that, you forget about who made them, because just looking at the life back then is so fascinating. But then you think about people who had the forethought to capture these images. But I'm not even sure if they realized what they were doing then, you know, how it would affect us now, you know. Because when I look at these pictures, they're just fascinating, because you ask yourself questions like, could I have lived like this? Or, you know, you know, a lot of questions go through your mind when you look at this. But it is a good time capsule, you know, to capture the life back then.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
It is. Y'all gonna really be fascinated by this next artist here. So we have Jean-Michel Basquiat. I hope that's how he says his last name. So this is once again a New York artist. I have 2 pages of his art. Where's the next page? Oh, so this artist Let me find his name here. I think okay, so I must have left out his name, his information. I do know that he is an artist out of Brooklyn. Um, did I? Okay, so I am not finding his information. He's an artist out of Brooklyn, New York, and I don't believe that he has transitioned. I believe that he is still with us today. Let me very quickly Google his name so we can get the information on him. He was, oh, okay, he did transition. He's an artist of Haitian and Puerto Rican descent. First achieved fame as part of Samo, a graffiti duo who wrote enigmatic epigrams in the culture hotbed of the Lower East Side of Manhattan during the late 1970s, where rap, punk, and street art coalesced into early hip hop music culture. Basquiat's arts focus on dichotomies such as wealth versus poverty, integration versus segregation, inner versus outer experience. He appropriated poetry, drawing, and painting and married text and image, abstraction, figuration, and historical information mixed with contemporary critique. He used social commentary in his paintings as a tool for introspection, identifying with his experiences in the Black community of his time, as well as attacks on power structures, systems of racism. Since his death at the age of 27 from a heroin overdose, his work has steadily increased in value. And so that is Jean-Michel Basquiat. I guess that's how you pronounce that. Now, his work is a little out there.
I was going to say that, Bishop. It's a little different, but art is art. Whatever comes out of their mind or whatever they consider it art, it's art. We were watching the other day an African American artist, and I meant to capture his name, but I forgot his gentleman, and he was making art out of like clay, and he made art out of piano keys. And he had it like the ocean, and the ocean had a black head coming out of it, so, and he's very he was in from New York, of course. It's crazy that it's all in New York, but he was a huge artist in New York, African American artist in New York, and he did a lot of sculpting out of just weird and odd things. So our minds, I tell you, our minds can do any and everything, and we can think of any and everything. And if we say that piano keys with the black head coming out of it was beautiful in his mind, then it is beautiful in mine too.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. We have some people doing some very unique things, but we call it creativity. So we have Kara. And so this is some of her work. Kara is an African American artist who rose to fame for her use of large paper silhouettes to explore social issues surrounding gender, race, and Black history. She was born in Stockton, California in 1969, raised by a father who worked as a painter. Walker knew by age 3 she wanted to become an artist. And she began experimenting with various avant-garde styles, creating pieces in order to tell a story or make a statement rather than achieve beauty or perfection. She says, I guess there was a little bit of a slight rebellion, maybe a little bit of renegade desire that made me realize at some point in my adolescence that I really liked pictures that told stories of things, genre paintings, historical paintings, the sort of derivatives we get in contemporary society. So the same year she graduated, Walker debuted a mural at the Drawing Center in New York City entitled Gone, a historical romance of a civil war as it occurred between the dusky thighs of one young negress and her heart. It wasn't just the theme of the piece that caught the attention of critics, but its form, black paper silhouette figures against a white wall. So that's what she's known for doing.
Bishop, she was on the same show that I was just talking about. And her main focus was cutting out silhouettes and having sceneries all over the art galleries and everything. So she was on that show as well, and everybody loved her silhouettes, how she would make scenes out of the silhouettes. I think we lost Bishop. Does anyone else have anything they want to include, talk about?
Her work looks tormented to me, like it's showing the torment of people. It was like the top left had everything from babies to the devil and a couple of other things. And then the bottom right showed the beauty of a woman. And then you saw all of this other morbid things around it. It's almost like showing the torment. I guess everything we had to come from and we're still coming from.
And she's not real old. She's not a real old artist either.
No, I don't think that she is. Okay, so we're gonna do a few more here. We're gonna skip this next person. I know that I wanted to also talk a little bit about some of our designers. And so most people know Kamura Lee Simmons. Let me not just skip over her. Let me just say a couple of things about her. She began a modeling career at the age of 13, and she was allowed to walk for some of the biggest names in fashion. We know that she married Russell Simmons, who had his menswear called Fat Farm. So in 1999, under Fat Fashions, Kamura Lee Simmons created Baby Fat to give women much needed voice in the booming streetwear industry. So Baby Fat is a brand that defined fashion in the aughts. The label offered short miniskirts, low-rise jeans, slinky crop tops, the bedazzled curvy cat logo inspired by Kamura's cat, Max. And so today, Simmons became one of the first Black women to run a billion-dollar company nearly 10 years after starting that, or after shuttering. Baby Fat is back under the direction of her 2 teenage daughters. And so that is Kamura Lee Simmons. Did anybody wear Baby Fat? Fat Farm?
Absolutely not.
No, I knew about it, but no, I didn't wear it.
Okay. I was not a Baby Fat person either, but
I knew a lot of people that wore it, but that's not my cup of tea. but more power to her.
Okay. Oh, absolutely. I love the fact that she has her teenage daughters running the company now. So hopefully they'll make some type of comeback. Our next person, which I was very impressed to hear, make sure I have her on the screen here. Her name is Anne Lowe. She was born in Clayton, Alabama, 1898, learned her dressmaking skills from her mother, who made dresses for society women in the South. When Lowe was 16, her mother died suddenly. Anne Lowe was left to finish her mother's last job. Y'all know how the seamstress take on these jobs. She was left to finish her mother's last job, the creation of 4 ball gowns for the First Lady of Alabama. These dresses launched Lowe's career. She moved to New York, enrolled in St. Taylor Design School, which hadn't realized they admitted a Black woman. So when they realized that they were required to segregate. In 1950, Lowe opened Ann Lowe's Gowns in Harlem. There's Harlem again. Became the go-to dress designer for the highest of high society. She designed dresses for the Rockefellers, the Roosevelts, the DuPonts. She was called society's best kept secret. Lowe was highly selective with her clientele. She says, I love my clothes and I'm particular about who wears them. I'm not interested in sewing for cafe society or social climbers. So she also scored a historical commission when she was hired to create the wedding dress of Jacqueline Bouvier, better known as Jackie O. When she asked Jackie O simply, when asked, Jackie O simply said it was a color designer. So what happened here? Oh, let me say this before I say something else. 1968, Lowe became the first Black woman to own a store on Madison Avenue. Okay. And so the thing that happened with her that was interesting to me is she got slighted and was not recognized for her work. And so then she got slighted again when Jacqueline Onassis did not call her name and acknowledge this was Ann Lowe who did my dress, how they do the names today. She just said it was a color designer. But anyway, she was the only Black woman on Madison Avenue. Anybody on her?
Yeah, Bishop, I remember very easily that my mom and her sister talked about her a lot, how famous she was and how classy she was and how she did so for so many white celebrities, but they weren't allowed to go to her store because they were Black. So, you know, my mom told me about the story a couple of years ago, she and her sister, and they weren't allowed to go into the store because they were Black. So it's amazing how things turn out.
The Black women couldn't go to the Black woman's store?
Correct. They couldn't go to the Black woman's store. Yeah.
Was she allowed to go in the store, the owner?
They probably thought that she was a seamstress or something. You know, white people just walking in off the street. They probably thought she was a seamstress or something. They probably didn't know she was the owner and you know what I mean?
Oh, they probably did.
Because if she wasn't getting the recognition that she deserved, nobody probably knew anything about her. Yeah.
Wow, that's heartbreaking, actually. And I say that because I know, you know, Ronnie's family history. They weren't climbers; they were there, and the fact that they couldn't walk into a store with a Black seamstress, who they would have said, "It's her dress," you know, that's his heart.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Anybody else on that one? All right. So let's see. We'll look to do maybe one or two others. I'm gonna pass him. I'm gonna pass him as well. Let's see if I can find her information. There's one person which I want us to get to, which I know people know, but we want to. Well, let me do him right quick, and then I'll come back. So this is American designer Willie Smith. He is considered to be the streetwear pioneer. So after dropping out of Parsons, Smith began designing for Digit Sportswear, where he met Lori Mallet. 1976, he founded his own line with Mallet called Willie Wear, which was a brand that you would see everyone wearing on the street. Known for his reasonably priced pieces, Smith didn't design clothes for the queen, but rather clothes for the people lined up to wave at her. Willie Wear was ahead of his time, mixing elements of relaxed fit sportswear with the high-end tailoring. Smith designed Willie Wear's seasonal collection for 11 years, was the first designer to house women's wear and men's wear under the same brand. New York City was his inspiration. Being Black has a lot to do with my being a good designer, he would tell people. Most of these designers who have to run to Paris for color and fabric combinations should go to church on Sunday in Harlem. It's all right there. That's what he would tell people. At the time of his death due to complications from AIDS in 1987, Willie Smith was known as one of the most successful young designers in America. And that's Willie Smith from Willie Wear. Anybody ever wore the Willie Wear?
Well, I don't want to date myself, but yes. And his label was black and white for the Willie Wear.
Black and white. I loved his.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. I love that. I always made sure I at least got something from his.
Me too.
His selection of clothes. Yeah.
And you know, Bishop, I had to sneak and get some wares because, you know, my mom knew that the designer was a gay guy, and how dare I wear gay clothes, you know, back in the day. So, yeah. Absolutely. But I would wear it just as proud.
He was doing a fabulous job. Fabulous. Yes. Yes. Okay, so let me see if I can get us to look at one other. So I want to make sure we give him his props. We know who this young man is. So he's changed his name a couple of times, but we're going to go with Sean Puffy Combs. Okay, P. Diddy. Before there was Yeezy and Fenty, there was Sean John by Sean P. Diddy Combs. Y'all remember Sean John. Combs launched Sean John at the height of his career in 1998, using his celebrity status to change the industry. He noted, and this is what he said, "We wanted to give them extremely multicultural and diverse fashion. We brought them fashion-tainment." Combs ran a celebrity-driven label before it was the norm. This was the pre-Instagram era. A master marketer who disrupted the industry, Combs would make TV appearances wearing Sean John, use the tabloids to his advantage. 2001, Sean John held the first nationally televised runway show. The industry rolled their eyes when a rapper wanted to be a designer. But fast forward 6 years later, and Combs was a recipient of the CFDA's Menswear Designer of the Year award. 20 years later, Sean John still racks up over 400 million in annual sales. It is sold at Macy's across the country, and Sean Combs is the blueprint for the celebrity-driven labels that followed. That's Sean Puff Daddy Combs, or P. Diddy, I guess is what it is now. Anybody wore Sean John? Because I know plenty of folks who wore Sean.
I've had a few of his shirts. I think Sean John and Damon John and his FUBU kind of, to me, were like the same type with the relaxed fit and everything. And they were very welcome in our community because honestly, the clothes were just a little tight before then. And by bringing that relaxed feel and they weren't overly designed. They were just like a nice, simple design, but just, with the comfort factor included. I always liked that, but yeah, Sean John is all over Macy's, always has been, and yeah, they're nice clothes. They're not flashy. They're just comfortable, stylish clothes.
He also has Deacon Kim. Outside of that look, he also has a nice line of dress shirts, men's dress shirts. Very nice line of men's dress shirts, nice fabric material, nice designs. And like you said, Macy's carries it, Bloomingdale's carries that line. So I like that line a whole lot of his shirts. So I applaud him.
My sons used to love Sean John. Oh my God. My nephew and all of them used to wear, y'all remember those big snorkel jackets with the big fur? They had the most prettiest fur around the rim. And it was 3/4 length coats. And oh my God. They didn't even have to wear a sweater under the coat. Them coats was great quality coats. And like you said, Deacon Kim, the loose fit, my boys really like that because they got to just worm all around in their clothing and stuff like that. They didn't have to pick their boxes out of between their legs and all that stuff like that. And I remember that because I'd be like, what are you picking for? You know, so their clothes was really relaxed fit and they was, you know, comfortable. They was all right with it. And every time I asked them what they want, they was like, Sean John, Sean John. So that was like really hot in our community in Brooklyn, New York. You know, a lot of boys, and like you said, FUBU as well. But yeah, they went for that. So, you know, I was kind of happy, you know, for him because, you know, that P. Diddy, Sean Puffy Combs was really, you know, big in our communities, him and Little Kim and all of them, because I used to be right down there, you know, they come from New York. So, yeah, I like this style of clothing. I really do. And Deacon Ronnie just reminded me too, they do have a lot of dress shirts too, because I remember going to Ross and Marshalls and seeing their dress shirts on the rack too. So you just reminded me of that because I just really forgot about it. Yeah, they do got some nice shirts.
Yep, I have several in my closet. I like his shirts.
All right, this is one young man. This is the last person I'm going to talk about. I did pass him. I want to come back to him. He was born and raised in Bordeaux, France. His name is Oliver Roosting. I guess I'm pronouncing that right. He moved to Paris to attend École. I don't know how to pronounce this technical school that he went to. He began his career designing at Roberto Cavalli, eventually becoming creative designer of the women's wear division. After 5 years at Cavalli, Roosting moved on to work as a women's ready-to-wear designer for Balmain. He worked closely with Christopher DeCarnon, the brand's creative director, and placed him in 2011. Having grown up in the age of Instagram, Roosting proved that his youth was his best asset by catering to the digital generation with his social media engagement. Roosting was one of the pioneers of Instagram marketing with his Balmain army of influencers dressed in the brand's signature military style. Balmain has had themed Snapchat filters, a personalized app, and the digital flagship store. Roosting continues to be at the forefront of the digital age as one of the first brands to sign on to Instagram's shopping feature in 2019. So this is a young man who led the way, looks like, with promoting your brand on Instagram. So we've talked about painters, people who are sculptors, people who are photographers, and some of the designers on tonight. So we've touched a lot of the different areas in which African Americans have impacted and made a tremendous difference in the lives of all people all across the globe. And so, you know, we want to continue to do these great things and know that, you know, so many of these people had a passion for something and they found somebody to help nurture that. And some of them were self-taught. And so there's nothing wrong with you teaching yourself an art and skill, and then possibly becoming well known for that. And so we have lots of people who are doing some great things now. And we have people who are using their creative skills and ability to make a difference in the lives of people all across the world. So what do y'all think about all of the people that we've heard about and talked about during this Black History Month?
Well,
Anybody?
I say this is a different type of Black History Month, and I think it's something we should always be doing because it's bringing people from our past into the forefront, whereas before it was always the same people, not, you know, diminishing their accomplishments, but there's so many more people out there that need to be heard. I mean, that we need to know about. So I think it's been a nice Black History Month for us, and I hope that we do it again next year.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
it takes our bishop to creatively think of something like this. I would not have thought to do this myself, because it's like, if you don't know, you know, it really doesn't, cross your mind until you actually think about it. You're like, oh, okay. Like when I went into the Apollo, I'm like, all that artwork that's on the wall and different things like that you see above signatures and stuff. Like, oh, who did this? Who did that? But you never think of it because you just go, oh, that's beautiful, kind of thing, and just keep it moving. But so this Black History this year has been amazing. So I just hope that you would just, Bishop, I know you've been putting it out, but just that we all just continue to keep sharing it, because I know a lot of people would appreciate it. And hopefully we can share it possibly to Montgomery County, PG County, maybe they want to show the kids some of this stuff, so they'll be more aware of, their history, because these are a lot of things that you cannot find in a school history book. Because I didn't learn it when I was coming up. Did any of y'all learn it when y'all was coming up? Did y'all see all these people? Our class, we learned how to do stick figures and draw fruit, in a bowl and vases and stuff like that. I didn't know that, all these artists, and I lived in Brooklyn, New York, and hung out in the Bronx and Queens and everywhere, and did not even know, so I mean, I just think this is a great eye opener. And Bishop, I do appreciate it, because you are taking us back to, not taking us particularly back, but allowing us to take the journey back to see, what our ancestors have fought for, what they have been through, and you can see it through the artwork that was displayed here tonight through other people's eyes. So I appreciate that. Thanks.
Yes. Thank you.
I think I'd like to see something on our website every month. I think I'd like to see us, show something on our website every month of somebody. It doesn't have to be a ton of people, just a new person every month, and show them both current people and historical people, so that you can always see something. It'll be nice for our children for Black History Month not to write about the same people that everybody else is writing about. It'd be really nice for them to write about some people that they don't know anything about, and that the teacher probably doesn't know anything about. It'd be really nice to see.
Right. Yes, it would. Yes, it would. And we'll talk to the IT person about that suggestion. Okay.
Oh, Bishop, I was going to say, I love the fact that, we brought to the forefront of people that we had no clue, and we stepped outside of the civil rights era. And don't get me wrong, I love my ancestors and everything that they have done. The reason why we can be on here and do all the things that we want to do in our personal lives. But I like the fact that we came kind of out of being depressed a little bit, hearing about them lynching us and killing us and spraying us with water hoses and this, that, and the other. But the things that we've accomplished that are pretty, like designing clothes or making art or taking pictures or designing the actual water guns and, all sorts of things like that, just amazing, that is not so depressing all the time. Because a lot of times during Black History Month, as long as I can remember, all we talked about was, Selma, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Madam C.J. Walker, and I'm not taking that from any of them, and I so appreciate them. But I like that we're thinking positive during Black History Month. First African-American president during our time, first African-American vice president woman during our time, so I do, as Minister Kat said, appreciate your mind for thinking outside of the box, bringing this to the forefront and allowing us to see people that have given to the community, but also in a very positive way to say, hey, maybe I want to do that, or maybe I'll look more into my art talents, or whatever the case may be. So truly appreciate it, and I love this platform for it.
And Deacon Ronnie, I just want to say this real quick. I agree with you, because when Bishop first was talking about, she wanted us to get on and do all this, I said, listen, I don't need to get mad tonight. You understand? Because I don't want to see all the root stuff and all the other stuff and talk about Emmett Till and everybody, because things like that make, like, you wasn't there at that time, but just to see and to have that heart and that conscience of what we had to go through and what our babies went through and our children went through, the children back then and the older folks, I didn't want to be mad all over again. So I tried to watch movies that would keep me upbeat, because we got the pandemic, we got so much that's going on out here. A lot of our loved ones are passing away, and but other things other than the pandemic as well. And I was like, Lord, I don't need to be able to, I don't need to just jump, so what Bishop got planned. So when I saw the first flight, I was like, okay, all right, well, it seemed like she's on to something. And I missed the first night, but I watched it on my own. And I was like, hey, I missed something that was good. So, I wasn't angry, and I wasn't lightened. I was, okay with it. And I agree with Deacon Ronnie. We all need to be able to move past that sad place and get to a place where we can say, okay, like we're not all okay with it, but we're going to be okay for this moment. Right here, sitting in this moment, we're all right, and allow us to be able to breathe and begin again. So it's important to begin again. But I appreciate that. And I'm excited that I, decided to join in and, be a part of the discussions, because I'm telling you, it really enlightened me. It took my mind off a lot of other things. And I so much appreciate it. And I just appreciate my leadership team. You guys are amazing, with all the input that we give each other. And we are healing right now in this space. So y'all realize that we are healing right now in this space, even just sharing that. So I appreciate it.
Yes. And thank you. And, I learned a lot by looking at these, but I wanted everybody to get that information as well. And it started with an idea or an inspiration. And then, I just felt like we should continue it for the whole month. And that's what we've done. So prayerfully, others who have watched have been blessed and have learned about other people, and will be able to write about somebody else, because I too was just always felt like I was always writing about Dr. Martin Luther King. I don't have nothing against Dr. Martin Luther King, but can I write about somebody else? And so you only had a few choices, they only gave you a few choices, told you about a few people. But to know that we've had so many powerful people who have done so many great things, I just feel like we should highlight this and put it out, let everybody know, and get everybody to start looking for other people who are doing great things. And so it's been a wonderful Black History Month study and time of getting to recognize other people who've done great things. And, hopefully we'll continue to, get the word out about people who are still doing things today. That was my initial idea. There are people today who are doing some great things, and we should not always want to talk about the dead folks, not that we don't honor them, but let's look at people who are still doing stuff today and contributing and helping to change the world today. So we've had a great study. Again, thank you to everyone for being on and sharing your thoughts. And thank you to everybody who has watched and tuned in to this Word Wednesday. And we will see you back here on Sunday. Please don't forget, Sunday, Minister Eliana is preaching. And so we want to make sure we tune in on time at 11 a.m. Make sure y'all are on time. And, we want to also let you know that we do have a group discussion every Tuesday and Thursday at 12 noon, the Empowerment Justice Center Wellness Center. If you are challenged with COVID, challenged with isolation, challenged with depression, challenged with anything, you are free to get on. We do not charge at the moment for getting on to the group discussions, okay? So all you have to do is get on the Zoom link that you see on the Empowerment Liberation Cathedral's page, and you can join our group discussions every Tuesday. It's an hour, 12 to 1, and, gain the tools that will help you to be stronger during this time. So thank you so much. And don't forget to donate on Cash App. We still want to receive your offering. And so we can receive that at $ ELC Church. The Cash App is $ ELC Church. You can also go to Givelify. We always tell people, if this ministry is a blessing to you, sow a seed. you know, and help us to continue to bring this ministry to you. And so our Givelify is Empowerment Liberation Cathedral. And so you can utilize those two platforms to give a donation to, or to give your tithes and offerings to. And so we thank you in advance for always giving and supporting the ministries and works of Empowerment Liberation Cathedral. And we bless the offering on tonight that anybody is giving. And we bless all of the givers. And we pray that God will return it to you tenfold. And so as we bid you farewell on tonight, we want to give you God's blessing and say, may the peace of God and grace of God be with each and every one of you.